In this video, we're diving into a heartbreaking case that shook a community and sparked a national conversation. What began as a quiet evening in the park ended in unimaginable tragedy. This is the true story of a life taken too soon and the relentless pursuit of justice. Harold Hill is a working-class area in East London. It was March 1st, 2019, and it was a cold Friday night. Amy's Play Site, a popular spot near St. Nate's Road, was full of the normal kids and adults. A group of teens, relaxing and meeting up after a busy week, gathered there. A lively 17-year-old A-level student named Jody Chesney was right in the middle of it all. She was sitting on a picnic bench with Eddie Coyle, her boyfriend, and 5 friends. A portable speaker was playing music, and everyone was laughing. While it was getting close to 9:25 p.m., things changed in Amy's Park. Around 9 p.m., Jody's group had seen 2 people hanging out. They didn't think much of it. People from other places come and go from parks. There was no word between them as they walked away into the night, but they came back after 30 minutes. They didn't just walk through this time. Police reports say that the 2 people moved deliberately and cut through the darkness to get to Jody's group. There were no words or warnings, just action. One of them hit in an instant, and Jody's whole world turned upside down. The night was filled with screams. Eddie, Jody's boyfriend, caught her as she fell, and her friends were shocked. The rescuers tried hard, but they couldn't save her. The Metropolitan Police locked down the park and called in the Homicide and Major Crime Command to look into a murder. Harold Hill wasn't known for this kind of crime. Even though London had a lot of knife crime, Amy's Park was a safe place where kids could be kids. Someone left flowers and notes at the park's edge, and purple ribbons, which were Jody's favorite color, were tied to the fences. Her grandma, Debbie Chesney, wrote about it on Facebook in a very honest way. Why do kids now have to be scared to walk in the park? The cops promised to look into it, but time was running out. The trail got colder every hour that there was no lid. However, there was one question that still wasn't dealt with. Who were those 2 people, and why did they want to hurt Jody? As police searched Harold Hill for clues, a bigger picture began to take shape. This picture hinted at a reason that no one saw coming. People in Harold Hill were thinking about a question as more and more purple ribbons were tied to trees and fences. Purple was Jody Chesney's favorite color. Who was this 17-year-old whose death left such a hole? The cops were looking for 2 unknown people. But we need to know more about Jody than just as a victim in order to understand why this case was so important to East London. Let's enter her world to see her dreams and the family she loved. Unsettling hints about what happened that night are being found by the police. Jody Chesney grew up in Dagenham, a close-knit area of East London. Her father, Peter Chesney, raised her after he and her mother, Claire, split up when she was 6 years old. To be a good single dad, Peter took full responsibility for Jody and her older sister, Lucy. Even though things weren't always easy, their home was full of love. Peter said that Jody was clingy as a child, a little girl who wanted to be close to others and was quiet, shy. But she grew over time, thanks to a first-grade teacher who helped her feel good about herself. Jody was 10 years old when Peter married Joanne in 2012. Joanne was quick to accept her new job as stepmother. Jody and Joanne became close, and Jody loved the bond they had. In a blog post from 2013, Jody said, "Your mom is the person who raised you, looked out for you, and heard your problems. There's no changing the fact that Joanne is my mom." A sign of the love they had for each other. Joanne said that Jody was needy when she was younger and wanted to connect with her mother, so they worked to make that happen. Jody's silly sense of humor made everyone laugh in their house. Joanne called her a wind-up toy because she was always so active and fun. Jody's love for the Girl Scouts shaped her teen years. She worked hard at it, climbing mountains, getting badges, and going kayaking with her troop. She was so proud as she stood outside 10 Downing Street in her scout outfit just a few weeks before she died. She also learned to play the piano on her own, and her fingers danced over the keys. She was only 3 weeks away from finishing her Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award. Her headmaster at Havering Sixth Form College, where she studied sociology, psychology, and photography, said she was great, focused, and hardworking. With a strong desire to make a change, Jody hoped to work with animals or kids. Friends recognized her as the one who could make them laugh out loud. As she got older and less shy, her humor got louder and funnier. The bond between Jody and her sister Lucy could not be broken. After being apart for 2 years, they told each other everything: secrets, laughs, and hopes. Lucy said that Jody was her other half, and that she always put other people first. Their Dagenham home was a gathering place for Jody's friends, who came to be close to her. She didn't have any haters. She just knew how to make everyone feel welcome. Woody, her dog, was even a part of her circle. Jody loved taking walks with him. It helped her calm down after a busy day. But even though Jody was shining brightly, the investigation into her death was making things darker. Detectives were putting together what happened in the hours before the attack, while her family was sad. There they were, hidden in the streets of Harold Hill. As the police looked deeper, they learned more about 2 people they saw in the park, and a reason that had to do with a dark world Jody had never been to. Let's go back and look at those last moments, following the hints that would soon lead to a terrible truth. Jody's March 1st, 2019 began like any other day. She woke up in her Dagenham home on a Friday morning with her dad, Peter, stepmom, Joanne, and sister, Lucy. Jody was busy that morning, making plans for the day and for her dad's 39th birthday. She wasn't sure what to get Peter yet, so she was getting thoughts from Joanne about what to get him. That was kind of Jody. She always wanted to make her family happy. Around 8 Amari, she shared a simple message on Instagram that said, "Happy birthday, Dad," along with a heart emoji. This post would later haunt those who saw it, as it got over 600 likes and many comments after she died. That morning, Jody went to Havering Sixth Form College to study photography, psychology, and sociology. She was in her second year of A-levels there. At 3 p.m., the last class was over, and Jody left college. With one shoulder slung over her back, she was ready to start the weekend. Back in Dagenham, Jody had one more thing to do before her plans for the evening. She loved taking the family's Yorkshire Terrier, Woody, for a walk, so she did it. People in the neighborhood often saw her walking Woody, talking on the phone, or waving to people she knew. She got back home around 4:30 p.m. and caught up with Joanne and Peter, who were getting ready to give him a birthday party. Jody said she was going to hang out with friends later, which is what most people do on Friday nights. From what we knew, she was going to do what she always did. In a later conversation with the Mirror, Joanne talked about it. Jody put on her jacket, said goodbye, and left around 5:30 p.m., saying she would be home later. A short bus ride took her to Rumford Railway Station, where she met up with her boyfriend, Eddie Coyle, and some friends. By 6:30 p.m., Eddie and the other 5 teens in the group were together, planning the night away in a lively voice. There were cameras that caught it. They often went to Rumford, which was a hub for teens in East London, because it had lots of shops and fast food places. That night, though, they chose to go to Amy's Park in Harold Hill, which is about a mile from Havering College, and where they often hung out. There was a playground in the middle of the park near St. Nate Road, and kids would hang out on the benches at night. At 7:30 p.m., they were sitting on a picnic bench and listening to music on a small speaker. That was the kind of quiet night Jody liked, having fun with her group by laughing and joking. Around 9 p.m., Jody's group saw 2 people in the park. They didn't look out of place. People came and went from Amy's Park, which was open to everyone. The two stayed for a short time, but didn't say anything to each other before leaving into the night. It didn't bother Jody and her friends, whose music and talk filled the air. But at 9:20 p.m., those two figures came back, moving in a way that hadn't been there before. Police reports from the Metropolitan Police say that they went up to the group straight, cutting through the darkness. One of them hid his face with dark clothes. The other one was less clear, just a shadow next to him. The first person jumped out and slashed Jody in the back with a knife so hard that the blade broke, leaving a 7-inch wound that pulled her lung apart. The park turned into a mess. The sound of Jody's scream cut through the night, and her friends stood still in shock. Eddie grabbed her as she fell and held her on the ground while yelling for help. The two forms ran away and disappeared into the darkness just as quickly as they had shown up. Eddie was so scared that he called 911 and begged for aid with a frantic voice. People living nearby heard the screams. 2 blocks away from the park lives Teresa Ferendon, a mom of 3. She was watching TV when her son stopped playing Xbox because of the noise. Jody was moaning while lying on her back in the park, where Teresa and her friend Kelly Smith ran to find her. Teresa did CPR on Jody, but didn't know that the broken blade was still in her back. A van driver stopped to help and put his coat over the wound. Another friend got a kitchen towel to stop the blood. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, but Jody's injuries were too bad to fix. A postmortem at Eastham Mortuary revealed that the knife had caused a lot of damage and bleeding. Even though they tried to save her, she was declared dead at 10:26 p.m., a little more than an hour after the attack. The park, which used to be a place for fun, was turned into a crime scene and was blocked off with police tape while forensic investigators looked for clues. Still shocked, Jody's friends told the cops that there had been no fight or warning, just a sudden act that had nothing to do with anything. The acting detective chief superintendent, John Ross, took over as head of the Metropolitan Police's Homicide and Major Crime Command and promised to find those guilty. He told onlookers, "Her death is a tragedy," and asked them to come forward. As the investigation heated up, detectives went back and looked at Jody's last hours, using witness statements and phone records to prove where she had been. A local man calling the cops was the event that changed the course of the case. He told them that he saw 2 guys run out of the park, get into a black Vauxhall Corsa, and speed off the night of Jody's attack. The witness also said that the driver was one of at least 2 men in the car. CCTV footage was the main part of the probe. Harold Hill's streets were full of cameras, which made for a mishmash of blurry pictures. Around 9:25 p.m. on March 2nd, cops got footage from St. Nate's Road and the nearby Retford Road that showed 2 men leaving Amy's Park. One wore a dark jacket with a unique pattern and the other a hoodie. They both had their faces covered. The video showed them going quickly toward Hilden Avenue, which is a residential area known for some drug use. A black Vauxhall Corsa was also seen on the video. Manuel Petrovic, who is 20 years old, was arrested on March 3rd. He owned the black Vauxhall that was seen at the scene. He said he had nothing to do with killing Jody and that his car had been stolen at knife point. He later admitted that he did own the Vauxhall and had a cell phone that he used to sell drugs. Petrovic wouldn't say who he was with that night because he wanted to keep himself and his family safe. He said that people were already looking for him at his house. Petrovic was questioned more and told what happened the night Jody died, but out of fear, he named the people who attacked her as Man A and Man B. Petrovic said that he was with a friend on March 1st when Man A called and asked for a ride. Man A was with someone else, Man B. They picked him up and drove to Harold Hill so Man A could get some high and cash. He said the 2 guys, who were not named, got out of the car at Harold Hill and left Petrovic and his friend inside. He said in the statement that Man A and Man B were gone for up to 5 minutes and seemed calm when they came back. It wasn't strange how they were acting, he said. I didn't think anything fishy about them. They were both there, but neither of them had anything on them. A friend and I were told that man A was getting drugs and money, Petrovic said. Petrovic said that a black man had put a knife to his throat and stolen his car keys after he dropped off the two men. The next day, I heard that a girl had been stabbed in Harold Hill, he said. I hoped it had nothing to do with the reason I was with man A and man B. Police found a second suspect, a 19-year-old local who was seen hanging out at Harold Hill's drug scene. They did this by using witness descriptions of a black guy in his late teens. To keep him from finding out, the cops didn't tell him his name. In early briefings, they only called him Suspect A, but the net got bigger. By March 5th, 2 more men, ages 30 and 38, had been arrested in Rumford on suspicion of helping the main suspects. A 50-year-old guy was also arrested on suspicion of helping to get rid of evidence, but he was quickly let go. Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wells told BBC News, "We're looking at a network, not just 1 or 2 people." This suggested that there was a greater criminal plot going on. People who lived near Retford Road added more pieces. A woman in her 40s, who lived next door to the flat that was searched, told police that she had seen sketchy people coming and going for weeks, usually late at night. She told about a young teen who matched Suspect B's description and seemed to do things for older guys. These stories suggested that Harold Hill had a drug problem because he was known to use cannabis and often had teens as runners. Detectives thought that Jody's group might have been confused for rivals or caught in a fight over territory. Even though she had a clean background and no drug ties, this made no sense. There were some problems with the probe. The 2 older guys who were arrested earlier were let go because their involvement had not been proven. By March 10th, 9 days after Jody's death, the cops had almost caught them. Based on a tip, the Metropolitan Police's Homicide and Major Crime Command went after a house on Rogers Road in Dagenham that was connected to Aaron Isaac's uncle. They thought that Aki, man A, and Isaac, man B, were hiding there after the attack. By 7 p.m., armed police officers were all around the property, and their body cams were recording. It was like something out of a movie. When he was 19, Svensson Aki climbed over the back flat roof to get away, but crashed through a greenhouse below, breaking glass all around him. "Don't move," a police officer yelled. "Show me your hands," in a video shared by the Metropolitan Police. While being handcuffed and confused, Aki spoke out, "What murder? I didn't kill anyone." Body cams caught his words. "Murder? What murder? Murder killed no one." Text messages on his phone linked him to Petrovic and talked about business in Amy's Park. When his house was searched, they found a jacket that matched the CCTV video. The sleeve of the jacket had blood on it from Jody. At the same time, 17-year-old Aaron Isaac tried to escape through a window, but failed. He was caught in the backyard, where he had thrown a backpack that had a Rambo-style knife, 2 toothbrushes, and hair mousse in it. A strange mix that made people look twice. That was not the end of the arrests. Police also arrested a 16-year-old boy who was a friend of Manuel Petrovic, but whose name they would not give out legally. They think he was involved in the crime. The police had a wide search warrant out because they knew that Harold Hill's drug scene often had groups of runners and sellers working together. Petrovic was caught because CCTV showed his black Vauxhall Corsa near Amy's Park the night of the attack, which made it look like he drove Aki and Isaac to the scene of the crime. There were charges against all 4 by May. Aki and Isaac were charged with murder. The 16-year-old and Petrovic were charged with murder and manslaughter. 2 other people, a 50-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman, were briefly detained for helping a criminal, but were later freed while the case was being investigated. Let's look into the suspects' pasts. The first one is Svensson Aki, who was born on March 29, 2000. He grew up in Harold Hill, close to Amy's Park. He was raised by his mother with 4 sisters. His childhood was rough because his father from Belgium was never around. He met his father for a short time in 2015. He lived in a Rumford Social Services house in Cole after being kicked out of his home in 2017 for being rude. Aki called himself a boxer and wanted to make it to the professional level. However, he was involved in the drug trade and had charges for selling and having cannabis and other drugs. The Guardian found that he had broken the terms of a 6-week suspended sentence for dealing in stolen goods in 2018. Friends said he worked as a county lines dealer, moving drugs between London and country areas. This was a violent job. Aki admitted that he was in Amy's Park when he was questioned, but he said he was only there to get herbs. He said there was no way he could have stabbed Jody and blamed Isaac for losing his cool. Aaron Isaac, born January 27, 2002, was young but had been in trouble before. Isaac had a sad and hard start because he lived with his mother and brother in a noisy apartment. Judge Wendy Joseph later said this at the Old Bailey. His mother had mental health problems, and Children's Services had known about him since he was 4 years old. On his arrest record, he was charged with having a screwdriver, hurting someone physically, having cannabis, and aggravated car theft. Isaac was angry while he was being arrested and threw a bag with a knife inside it. He told the police he was just hanging out with Aki and didn't know anything about the knife when they questioned him. "I didn't touch her," he told police, blaming Aki for the attack and saying he had only run away because he was scared. Still, evidence grew. The bloody clothing, the phone records that showed they planned the attack, and the CCTV footage that showed they were at the scene of the crime. As the charges were made official, Harold Hill struggled with how stupid the motivation was. Jody, a Girl Scout who had nothing to do with drugs, got caught up in a fight she didn't know about. The arrests were a relief, but they didn't end the case. Justice was needed for her family, especially her dad, Peter. On its website, the Jody Chesney Foundation says that Jody was a beautiful person who loved everyone and didn't blame anyone. Peter started the foundation to help keep young people from getting into knife crime. At vigils and scout events that remembered her kindness, purple ribbons became a sign of her memory. Jody's influence went beyond Harold Hill. People all over the country talked about knife crime after her death. Prosecutor Crispin Aylett said that another young life was lost to a knife, a feeling that was shared in Parliament. Peter fought for stricter laws and funded youth programs through his organization. In 2020, he told The Guardian, "No law will bring her back." It started on September 17, 2019, at the Old Bailey, which is one of the oldest courts in London. 4 people were charged: Svensson Aki, 19, Aaron Isaac, 17, Manuel Petrovic, 20, and a 16-year-old boy who can't be named for legal reasons. There were a lot of feelings in the hall. Almost every day, Jody's family, including her dad, Peter, stepmom, Joanne, and sister, Lucy, came wearing purple ribbons to honor her. Joanne told the London Economic, "I wanted them to see what they did to us." Even though it hurt, her resolve was unwavering. Crispin Aylett, the prosecutor for the Crown, led the case and said that all 4 defendants were involved in a brutal act of violence that had nothing to do with drugs. He told the jury that Jody was completely innocent and had been mistaken for one of his competitors who frequented Amy's Park. Aylett used CCTV footage of Petrovic's black Vauxhall Corsa near the park, Aki's bloody jacket, and phone records that linked the group to a planned job as strong proof. He talked about a chat Petrovic had in prison, in which he admitted that Aki had planned operations but banged on the wrong people. Aylett said Aki was the one who stabbed, and Isaac was a big fan of him. He also said that Petrovic and the 16-year-old knew they were helping with the attack. According to BBC News, Aylett said this was not an accident. He emphasized that the group meant to do real harm, which means they are all responsible for murder under joint enterprise law. The defense teams fought back, and each tried to keep their client from being connected to the crime. Akwi's lawyer, Charlie Sherrod, said that his client was in the park, but denied that his client struck Jody. Sherrod pointed to Isaac and said he was the attacker. He also said that Akwi's clothes, a white jacket and a gray tracksuit, didn't match what witnesses said about a black-clad figure. Petrovic's lawyer, Sarah Forshaw, said he was just a driver and had no knowledge of any dangerous plans. If Manny knew what was coming, he'd have turned off his phone like Aki, she told them. For Isaac, Natasha Wong said he was just a runner and wasn't trying to do anything dangerous. She said he didn't have a knife on him and didn't know about Akwi's plan. Louise, who was defending the 16-year-old, said that he had never been violent before and asked the jury to see him as a bystander instead of a player. For their defense, each used the fact that there wasn't direct proof, like DNA in the knife, to try to fuel doubt. The jury thought about the case for just over 5 hours after hearing 45 hours of testimony, which included Eddie Coyle's account of the attack and forensic proof of the 18 centimeters deep wound. They gave their decision on November 7, 2019. Isaac and Aki were found guilty of killing someone. Petrovic and the 16-year-old were found not guilty of all charges, which shocked Jody's family, but showed that the jury had doubts about their intentions. Judge Wendy Joseph condemned the stupid drug fight that killed Jody at the sentencing on November 18th. Aki, who was found to have stabbed, was sentenced to life in jail with a minimum of 26 years. His partner, Isaac, got life in prison with at least 18 years. I am sure whoever drove the knife through Jody's body intended to cause death, the judge said. As the impact statements were read, people in the courtroom broke down in tears. Peter said, "I have lost the most precious person I will ever know. I'm only 20 years old, and already I'm dreading my life." Jody's sister Lucy wrote in her statement, describing the family's ruined future. The son quoted Joanne as saying, "I'm happy justice has been served, but I'm not sure I'll ever feel satisfied." She and Peter broke up in early 2020 because of their grief. Not guilty hurts a lot, Joanne thought. Petrovic should be punished for his part as a driver, but Jody's family was more concerned with remembering her. The Jody Chesney Foundation keeps doing good work. According to its website, in 2024, it held a fundraiser that raised £10,000. The money went to anti-knife crime training. Peter, who is now 45 years old, wrote on X in March 2025, which would have been Jody's 23rd birthday, "Another year without you, but your light still shines." The story of Jody makes us wonder about something very scary. How many more people have to die before knife crime stops being so bad in our cities? Her death was a mistake, but her life was a gift that taught us to love our loved ones and fight for a better world. What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen to another family? Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to help keep her memory alive and support more stories that deserve to be heard. Share your thoughts in the comments. Justice begins with awareness. Until next time, stay safe.